Judy Evans opens up about panic over Days of Our Lives script shock. I panicked. I cried for soap opera fans. Few things are as nerve-wracking as the sudden exit of a beloved character. And for actors, that uncertainty is even more intense. This was exactly the case for Judy Evans, who has been a staple on Days of Our Lives for decades. Known for her portrayals of Adrienne Johnson Kiriakis and later Bonnie Kiriakis, Evans recently shared an emotional moment where she feared she might be facing another painful farewell from the long-running NBC soap. In a candid interview with Soap Opera Digest, Evans admitted that she panicked and even shed a few tears after reading a script that left her fearing the worst. I panicked. I cried a little. I was so nervous. I was going crazy because you never know. And I was too scared to ask, she confessed. Her reaction was understandable. Soap operas are notorious for shocking character deaths, and Evans had already experienced one heartbreaking departure from the show in the past. Fans of DOOL will remember that Evans originally played Adrienne Johnson Kiriakis, a beloved character who had been part of the show's canvas for years. However, in 2019, the show took a shocking turn when Adrienne met a tragic fate in a devastating car accident. That storyline came during a time of major upheaval, with the show engaging in time jumps and sudden character exits, leaving many fans stunned and disappointed. For Evans, losing Adrienne was not only professionally challenging but emotionally difficult. The character had been a vital part of Salem, and her demise left many feeling cheated out of future storylines. However, the actress was given a second chance on the show by stepping into the role of Bonnie Kiriakis, a character with a completely different personality. While Bonnie had been around before, her reintroduction as a more permanent presence gave Evans another opportunity to remain on Days. But as she recently revealed, that didn't stop her from feeling anxious about her future with the soap. Despite Bonnie being well established in Salem, Evans couldn't shake the fear that history might repeat itself. That concern hit a fever pitch when she received a script that described Bonnie falling down an elevator shaft. A moment that immediately set off alarm bells. I was like, oh, they're killing me, Evans recalled. Given how dramatic and final the fall sounded, she was convinced that her time on the show was coming to an abrupt end once again. The uncertainty weighed heavily on her, but she was too scared to ask for clarification. The last time she had inquired about her storyline's direction, she had been told that Adrienne was being killed off. That painful experience made her hesitant to seek answers this time. Instead, she chose to remain quiet and brace herself for the worst. As Evans waited for the next set of scripts, the anxiety only grew. She admitted that she spent days worrying about whether Bonnie would survive the fall, or if this was the moment she'd have to say goodbye to Days of Our Lives once again. The possibility of leaving the show was not just a professional concern but an emotional one as well. For years, DOOL had been her home, and leaving under tragic circumstances once before had been difficult enough. I was panicking. I cried a little bit. I was so nervous. I was going crazy, because you never know, and I was too scared to ask, Evans confessed. Her mind raced with possibilities. Would Bonnie be found lifeless at the bottom of the shaft? Would she be written out in a shocking turn of events? Was this the end of the road for yet another of her characters? After what felt like an eternity, the next script finally arrived, and with it came an enormous sense of relief. Bonnie had survived. While the fall was serious, it wasn't fatal, meaning Evans could breathe easy knowing she wasn't about to be written off in another heartbreaking storyline. Despite Bonnie suffering some pretty intense injuries, Evans joked that she's recovering at a near-superhuman pace. That's classic soap opera logic. Characters can go through the most harrowing accidents and still bounce back in no time. Fans won't have to wait long before Bonnie is back to her old self, stirring up drama in Salem once again. Bonnie's latest ordeal in Salem has left fans reeling, as the shocking truth behind her terrifying elevator accident has finally been exposed. What seemed like an unfortunate mechanical failure turned out to be a deliberate trap, one carefully orchestrated by the ever-deceptive Whitley. The incident was no accident at all. It was a calculated move by a woman whose dark secrets have long been lurking beneath the surface. And in a horrifying turn of events, the nightmare didn't end with the fall. Bonnie became the victim of a brutal attack at the hands of none other than Whitley herself, leaving her battered and fighting for recovery in a hospital bed once more. Whitley had always maintained a shroud of mystery. Though many in Salem suspected her of harboring secrets, few could have imagined the extent of her sinister motives. A master manipulator within the medical field, she had spent years hiding in plain sight, using her position to control, deceive, and harm. But no one expected her to go this far. The assault on Bonnie was a chilling escalation, proof that Whitley's dangerous tendencies had spiraled beyond anything the town had seen before. As Bonnie struggled to come to terms with what had happened, the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. The attack wasn't random. The sabotage, the threats, it had all been leading to this moment. "I should have realized this sooner," she whispered to herself, shaken by the realization that she had been caught in Whitley's twisted game far longer than she had known. Meanwhile, elsewhere in town, a more ominous development was unfolding. Inside a dimly lit room, a large board covered in photos and reports stood as an eerie shrine to Whitley's obsession. In the center of it all was a photograph of Abe, his face violently crossed out with a red X. He had been under surveillance, stalked, studied, and marked as the next target. Abe stepped into the room, his heart pounding as the weight of realization sank in. "I should have known it was you," he muttered, his voice filled with disbelief and fury. Across the room, Whitley sat on the edge of her hospital bed, unfazed, her lips curling into a smirk as she met his gaze. "Why did it take you so long?" she asked with eerie calmness, tilting her head as though genuinely curious. His eyes darted back to the board, to the web of connections she had woven, to the evidence of an obsession so deep it had driven her to violence. And then the final confession came, a name whispered through a chilling laugh. "Cassandra. You were right," she admitted with an unsettling glee. "I did it." Abe felt his stomach drop. Cassandra had been an unsolved mystery for far too long, her death an open wound in Salem's history. And now, with Whitley's casual admission, it all made sense. "And you know what, Abe?" she continued, her eyes gleaming with a twisted kind of joy. "I'd do it again." The revelation was almost too much to process. Whitley had been acting out of vengeance, not just against Abe, but against everyone who had, in her mind, destroyed what she loved most. She ranted about a television program, a cherished part of her life that had been taken in a new direction, one she despised. That was her breaking point. That was when she decided that those responsible needed to pay. "I only wanted to show you your mistakes," she sneered, "before everything you built was ruined beyond repair." But what had started as an obsession had escalated into something far deadlier. She had begun cleaning house in the most permanent way possible. Abe was sickened by the thought. How far had she gone? How many lives had she touched with her madness? And most chilling of all, who else was on her list? But justice, though delayed, was finally closing in. As Whitley sat there, basking in her confessions, she failed to notice the storm gathering behind her. Paulina, her eyes blazing with determination, moved swiftly. Whitley's fingers curled around a syringe, poised to strike again. But Paulina wasn't about to let her escape unscathed. With a sharp movement, Paulina grabbed Whitley's fevered hand from behind, twisting her wrist until the syringe clattered to the ground. A desperate struggle ensued, but Paulina was relentless. There was no escaping justice this time. The authorities arrived within moments, surrounding Whitley as the truth of her crimes finally unraveled. Her reign of terror, months, if not years in the making, had come to an end, but the damage she had done would leave scars on Salem forever.